and across Northern Ireland through the night. A few showers likely across Wales and southwest England, but much of England and Wales is having a dry night. Not as chilly as last night. We'll easily drop down into single figures in some towns and cities, but many places staying well above freezing. Certainly, as I said, a lot milder than last night. As we go into Friday, it's a bit of a mess, really. Lots of cloud in the south with outbreaks of rain working their way from west to east. At the same time, a line of rain spreading from southern Scotland into northern England. Behind that, plenty of heavy showers for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but some brighter spells. Much of northeast England, North Wales having a dry and a fine day again. Temperatures in the south close to average. A fresher feel, though, across Scotland and Northern Ireland with a brisk wind. Much of that rain tends to shimmy out of the way during Friday night and into Saturday. So quite a few of us, certainly in the east, will start the weekend dry. But here comes another line of rain, quite heavy rain as well. But it does move through pretty rapidly during Saturday morning. But a wet spell for northern England and Scotland, some blustery winds again across the northwest. And then we're left with sunshine and showers for many during Saturday afternoon. Again, those showers tending to zip through on a fairly brisk wind, and temperatures close to average across the south, a bit fresh further north. So low pressure dominating, bands of showers zipping through during the weekend with some brighter spells in between. This low could bring some more persistent rain on Sunday.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is Dewbs & Co. Now, the fallout from the not-so-mini budget continues. Apparently, more U-turns are expected, this time on things like corporation tax, and Tory MPs are apparently busy filing their no-confidence letters in Liz Truss. One MP cryptically tweeting the very definition of the word confidence. Well, I feel like tweeting back to him the very definition of the word self-harm. What on earth are this lot doing to themselves? Tell me your thoughts on that. And universities have been warned that they could be fined if their graduates don't bag the top jobs. Quite frankly, I can't help but wonder when on earth are graduates going to realise that they've been sold a pup, going to university in their droves like this and paying a fortune, a massive fortune actually, for the privilege. I think it's all gone a little bit too far. But are you in the opposite camp? Do you think university is indeed the right step forward for pretty much all our young people? Tell me your thoughts on that. And, you know, Do you know that when you're driving your car, you do the right thing, you hear sirens behind you and you pull over, I don't know, you might pull into a yellow box or a bus lane or something. Did you know you can be fined for doing that? So I didn't. I just thought normal rules don't apply if indeed you're trying to get out of the way of the emergency services. But yes, they do apply. Not only do those rules apply, but rules seem to be popping up everywhere at the moment when it comes to being a motorist. I'm asking you tonight, do you think we're edging towards a war on motorists, whether it's low traffic neighbourhoods, bus lanes everywhere, cycle lanes everywhere, fines for this, that and the other? The motorist seems to have become, I don't know, a bit of an ATM to councils. Is it all just an agenda to get us out of our cars? Tell me your thoughts on that. We'll have it all to come. But first, let's bring ourselves up to speed with tonight's latest headlines.
Michelle, thank you. Good evening to you. The Chancellor's insisting his focus is on delivering the mini-budget. That's amid reports the government's about a U-turn on the new measures. And it's after some Tory members of the 1922 committee urged Prime Minister Liz Truss to reconsider Kwasi Kwarteng's economic plans. The Bank of England has already intervened twice to stabilise the markets following his budget. However, that support comes to an end tomorrow. International Trade Secretary Kemi Badenoch says it's important now that her party works together.
Even talking about changing leaders at this time would be disastrous. We should not be talking about that at all. We should be focusing on what is important for people's lives, for their jobs and for their prosperity. It's time to unite, get behind the Prime Minister and focus on her growth agenda.
Well, in other news today, the High Court has heard a second challenge against the government's plan to deport some illegal migrants from the UK to Rwanda. The government says the measures would reduce the numbers of people crossing the English Channel, but critics are concerned by Rwanda's human rights record. Asylum Aid, the charity mounting the legal challenge, is arguing that tight timescales are leading to unfairness and are impacting on people's ability to access justice. Well, as you've been hearing throughout the day on GB News, a court has heard a nurse accused of murdering several babies, apparently loved her job and cared deeply about the babies and their families. Lucy Letby's defence has told Manchester Crown Court the neonatal unit where Miss Letby worked was overstretched and understaffed. Letby's charged with the murder of 7 babies and the attempted murder of 10 others at the Countess of Chester Hospital during 2015 and 2016. She allegedly wrote notes to herself which read, "I am evil" and "I killed them on purpose," which were found during a search of her home. The 32-year-old, however, denies all the allegations. A spending watchdog has warned around £4.5 billion awarded as part of furlough payments during the pandemic was lost through mistakes and fraudulent claims. The National Audit Office is criticising the government for not thoroughly checking process when it rolled out the scheme, which overall cost £97 billion. However, it does say the scheme met its primary objective to protect British workers and businesses during an extraordinary national health emergency. The government says it's still working to root out those who abuse the system, with HMRC expecting to recover £1.1 billion over the next 2 years. Now, the head of NATO says the circumstances for his organisation to potentially use nuclear weapons were extremely remote, but that there would be severe consequences if Russia were to use them. Jens Stoltenberg refused to be drawn on the details of how the alliance might respond, but that using nukes against Ukraine would be crossing a red line. He said NATO would remain vigilant in the coming weeks as Russia holds its own nuclear drills.
We have increased our vigilance in the Baltic and North Seas and doubled our naval presence there. Allies are increasing security around key installations, and we are stepping up our intelligence sharing and surveillance across all domains, from space to undersea capabilities.
To the United States now, where a jury has recommended life in prison for a gunman who killed 17 people in a school shooting in Florida in 2018. Nicolas Cruz, who was 19 at the time, used a semi-automatic weapon at Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland. He pleaded guilty to the murder of 14 of his fellow students and 3 members of staff. Here, Royal Mail workers have been striking once again today in a long-running dispute over pay and conditions. The Communication Workers Union says 115,000 members are joining picket lines outside Royal Mail offices all day. It's one of a series of 19 walkouts planned in protest against various proposals by the company. Royal Mail says the union's action is weakening their financial position. And lastly, the Prince and Princess of Wales are visiting the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park in London today to see how a sports charity is helping to inspire lives. Coach Core, launched by William and Kate in 2012, aims to create the next generation of sports coaches. So far, it's helped more than 750 disadvantaged young people get a coaching apprenticeship. In celebration of the charity's 10th anniversary, the couple have been meeting some of the youngsters and had a taster of some of the sports on offer. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. This is GB News, the People's Channel, where Michelle now has Dewbs & Co.
Thanks for that, Polly. Well, I'm with you lucky people, right through until 7 o'clock tonight, keeping me company here in the studio. My panel, we've got Charlotte Pickles, who's a director of the Reform think tank, and the teacher and author Kevin Rooney. Good evening to both of you. And you know the drill, don't you, on Dewbs & Co by now. It's not just about us three here, it's about you at home as well. What's on your mind tonight? You can get in touch with me on email, gbviews@gbnews.uk is the email, or you can tweet me at gbnews. The things I want to talk to you about tonight are, of course, politics. What is going on now? What are the Tories doing to themselves, quite frankly? It's borderline ludicrous now, isn't it? Also, I want to talk to you about universities. If you ask me, way too many young people are being pushed into going to university. For what benefit? Really? What? Tell me. Apparently, universities can maybe get fined if some of their, well, majority of their graduates are not getting good jobs at the end of their education. And also, is there a war on motorists? It feels like that sometimes to me anyway. Where do you sit on that? That's how you get in touch with me, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Tell me what's on your mind tonight. Lots of you doing so already. Ron, you're one of my first emails tonight. In fact, often you're in there first one. I like it. If I was a pub landlady, you would be one of my favourite regulars, so good evening to you. Tim, you're getting stuck in to the Tory party. What you're saying is basically Liz Truss deserves better than what you call those unprincipled so-and-sos in her party. Another email that I saw today, which I've lost your name now. I've got lots of you emailing in quite quickly. Someone's just said, Michelle, are these Tory backbenchers really Tories, or are they Labour people dressed as Tories? I don't know, you tell me. The reason I'm pondering some of this tonight, I'll come straight to you, Charlotte, is because it's another day of turmoil, another day of rumours, another day of suggested U-turns, Kwasi Kwarteng having to say, I'm not going to resign. It all stems down to this mini-budget, doesn't it? Where are you on it?
It does. And look, I'm not sure we've had a Prime Minister with quite as steep a hill to climb to regain the confidence, not just actually of her party, but if you look at the polling of where the public are, to regain confidence amongst the country as well. And I think you're right that it in part comes back to the mini budget. So it was a total own goal. You know, the mini budget was actually more of a maxi budget, which was one of the problems. You know, it blew a £45 billion hole in the public finances. For some unknown reason, the Prime Minister and her Chancellor decided that they wouldn't back that up with at least some indication of how they would pay for that, which is what created this sort of uncertainty and then turmoil in the markets. And, you know, whether or not we think we should care about the markets, they have very real world implications for people's with mortgage, you know, the cost of going to the supermarket, you know, all these sorts of things are impacted by that mini budget. I think, though, really this comes back to the leadership campaign. And so, you know, your point about the kind of constant political turmoil. We all remember the summer having this sort of what seemed like such a long process to try and pick a new Conservative leader, whilst, let's face it, there was quite a few other crises going on that would have been probably better that focus had been on. I think part of the problem was that Liz Truss, now Prime Minister, mistook a very small number of Conservative Party members for being representative of where the public are, and they're not. And I think that's what we're starting to see now in the polling.
Well, you say about this polling, by the way, so if you're not up to speed with the latest polling, a YouGov poll out now says Labour is at 51% of the vote and the Tories on just 23%. I always find these polls fascinating, by the way, because never in my life, ever, have I been polled. Ever. I don't know anyone that has. Have you been polled at home? If you have, get in touch and tell me. Who do they poll? I don't know. Have you ever been polled?
I have, yes. But in the olden days, they would literally call you up. They'd randomly call telephone numbers. But of course, nobody has a landline now, and that's not the way they do it. So mostly it's people signing up online. But they do, so that sounds like it might be very self-selecting. They do weight it. They do make sure it's representative of the public. But I mean, I think we've seen in the past that polls can get things very wrong as well.
Have you ever been polled, Kevin?
Never, ever.
I've not.
Michelle, no.
I'm not trying to suggest that there's anything untoward going on, but I genuinely, well, I do know someone now that's been polled you. But I don't. Anyway, the whole kind of U-turn, mini-budget, where are you on it?
Look, Kwasi Kwarteng and the Tories, I think you know me a wee bit. I wouldn't be fans of the Tories. But just before I maybe make the point I was going to make, can I pick up on something Charlotte said?
You can.
Do you know when you were making the point, Charlotte, about, well, the problem with Kwasi and Liz was when they made this budget, the markets reacted and it was a bad reaction, etc. Are we now saying that politicians have to be holding to the free market to that extent? Question mark. Because I do think that's a problem. And I don't think I would necessarily share some of the criticism of Liz Truss, and my God, I'm not a fan, and Kwasi Kwarteng. They made, as elected politicians, I know you can have a debate about Liz Truss because she came off the Boris. Let's lay that slightly to the side. They made a political decision as the direction they're going in. And now we have a situation where the markets are reacting and everybody's saying, no, you can't do that. Where's that going to lead us if we continue with that logic further down the line? That is absolutely the death of politics. So that's the first point that would have a problem with. And the second issue is, I think we're in danger in this country of politics being driven by technocrats.
Do you? I think we're in danger of politics being driven by the media.
Well, there's that as well. There is that as well. And but that is a serious, serious problem. And I can't believe I'm saying this because I'm coming to defence at one level of elected politicians. So that's my first point. But the second point is about the Tories. Because, funny enough, when your brilliant researcher was speaking to me earlier this morning, I thought, I was generating all these notes down about the economy and the direction we're going in, and it's now turned into a discussion about the Tory party themselves and the U-turns and all the rest of it. The Tory party shouldn't really be the Conservative party. And what I'm saying is we've come in 2022 to a point where really that party should decide to go in its different directions. Within it, you've got absolutely neoliberals, you've got One Nation people, you've got all sorts of other people, some libertarians even in that party and so on and so forth. And what happens when you get to a moment like now, when you've got the long-term build-up of economic problems which have been built up over 10 or 20 years because of the lack of long-term foresight of not just this government but previous governments, and when you get to this moment, what you find is they're like, to use an old North of England saying, they're like a bag of ferrets. They don't know where they're going. And is that really surprising? And in a way, what's happening is, might sound a bit profound, but I actually genuinely think we're at a moment of the realignment of politics.
Do you?
That's the only direction they can go, I think, in relation to the Tory party.
We like profound moments. Do you think it might be like, who was that group that splintered off? What was the name of them? I remember there was Chuka Amuna. There was it Anna Sue?
Oh, they have like 5 different names.
I just remember there was this, I'm having Change UK in my ear. There you go. That's what everyone needs one of those in their ear. Someone that knows what they're talking about, as opposed to, I've just got this vision on this staircase. Do you remember? I just remember them being in like a shoehorn.
Don't you remember the Nando's photo? They all went to Nando's and there was this odd photo of these formerly Conservative Labour people sitting having a Nando's. Well, there was a lot of salads, which to me seems a bit of an odd Nando's choice. But
well, Change UK, they didn't change UK much, did they? What became of them?
Well, they all just lost their seats.
Right, and went
turned out the country didn't want that.
Well, there you go. But what do you think to what Kevin? Well, first of all, what do you think to what he was saying to you about why should you just be beholden, if you like, to the markets like that?
So I think there's the 2 points, and weirdly, I entirely agree with Kevin, but I think he's wrong about the kind of the sort of the kind of issue that leads to. So on the politics, you are absolutely right. You know, we have to be able to have an elected government that is making decisions based on their manifesto, the mandate that the country has elected them on. And look, Boris Johnson was elected with a landslide. You know, the Conservative Party at that point had a huge political capital based on the fact that he'd had such a ringing endorsement from the public. This is not what he stood on in any way, shape or form. And that's what I mean by mistaking this small group of Conservative members and thinking that gives you a mandate. Now, I'm not on the side that says you have to have a general election if you change the leader, because we don't vote for a Prime Minister, we vote for a party. But what Liz Truss has done is she's entirely changed the direction of the party, and that is
so what
not
are you
what the
saying?
country
Are you
elected.
saying that there should be a general election?
I think they need... So, I think there's several options here. I don't think right now, with all of the crises we're facing, that a general election would be the right thing to do. I just think it would be too disruptive. But I do think, and I think this is what we will see, that there will be quite a strong rowing back of the position they're in, because it hasn't landed well either with the party that she has to lead or with the public that she needs to gain votes from in 1 to just over 2 years' time. But just on the markets point very quickly, of course, we don't want, whether it's technocrats, whether it's markets, whether it's unions, we don't want any of these people to be forcing the direction of the country because they're not elected. You're absolutely right in that. But we do also have to accept there's a reality here. So unless we want the state to be buying us all houses and we want the state to be filling our shops with goods and running our shops, unless we want the state to be doing everything, then there is the market, and actions that politicians take, that government takes, and as we've seen globally, actions that happen globally, impact on the market. And the reason we have to care about that is not because of some abstract sense that we care about, these kind of, puppeteers sitting kind of, in the shadows, pulling the banks and the gilt markets, etc. It's because it affects real people. That person who's got a mortgage that's just about, making ends meet can't afford another 400 quid on their mortgage every month. And that's why
but hang on. Timmy Malik could be the Prime Minister and you're still going to have interest rate rises because this is a global situation. This isn't to do exclusively with Liz Truss or whoever, Kwasi Kwarteng. Or Kevin, you come back in, you wanted to...
Well, no, I think there's two things. I mean, your point coming back on me is a cracker, and I accept that. At the level of, Liz Truss taking over from Boris Johnson. I think, and by the way, there's a good debate to be had, because I think you are witnessing the presidentialisation of British politics. And so with that comes the idea that people start to expect an election. So, we have this uncodified constitution, and whether or not you're for what we have here, what you have across the Atlantic in America with their codified constitutions, an interesting debate. But I think it's legitimate that people now say they want an election. But I can see both sides of that, Michelle. I don't have a hard and fast position. The thing about the markets, I understand what you say, but so they roll back, right? So they roll back, because they don't have enough conviction. And I lose respect for them. I don't like them, but I lose respect for them when they have no conviction. So what are we at now? Are we saying that the market in Britain, capitalism, the free market, is you take a punt? So Kwasi Kwarteng's taking a punt with the way he's wanting to basically go for growth, which growth is a great thing, and cut taxes and so on and so forth, but maybe cut public spending. Some of these people don't like it. So what's the plan B? Is that another punt? Question mark. And what I'm saying is, Blue Peter style, we have not prepared one earlier where we have a guarantee. That's the nature of politics.
But I think, but you're right that, and it's interesting that you say, we haven't prepared one earlier. What they did is they announced £45 billion of tax cuts and spending, and you can sit there and say that was what they believed in. Liz Truss stood up in the leadership campaign repeatedly and told us that's what she was going to do, some of it. But what she should have done, and this is where the what did I prepare earlier, is there should have been a plan of, OK, what does that look like then, right? So it was the fact that it was this sort of rash kind of rush to announce this without having said, and either, yes, we are going to then look at public spending and we're going to cut it. And if that's your position, say that.
What drove that speed in your mind?
So there was one area where the speed was essential. And
energy.
Which is energy, exactly, because people needed to know what was going to happen to their bills.
Agreed.
Businesses need to. There was no urgency to announce the tax cuts.
But then what do you think propelled her and him, Kwasi, to do that at that speed?
I think too much of a dogmatic, kind of blinkered desire to be seen as sort of, you know, in a sense, what Kevin is saying is a good thing, to show that conviction. You know, I've said I'm going to be tax cutting, and do you know what? The first possible opportunity, I'm going to do that tax cutting. And actually, I'm not sure. I want to know that my politicians have a vision. I want to know they have a set of values. I want to know what they stand for. I also want them to be pragmatic. I want them to deliver that vision within the constraints of reality. So actually saying, well, I'm absolutely, my ideological position is that I'm going to cut taxes and I'm going to cut spending. OK, but that's fine. But then you're happy for people to have worse outcomes in life. You're happy for, you know, poorer households to struggle, right? That you have to, and that's not what they're saying.
It's a great point. I love the way you say that, and I would like that conviction as well, and I wouldn't vote for them, by the way.
Exactly, which is democracy.
But that's exactly. Yeah. But, you know, the point about the energy, which I think Michelle brought up, is interesting because, you know, plaguing all their houses in terms of both wings of the Tory party and the Labour Party, because you talk about how come this country, supposed to be one of the major countries in the world, got this situation where when you had a war in Ukraine has an energy crisis, how is it when we had a few weeks hot weather in the summer that they started rationing water in what's supposed to be a developed country? I won't even talk about the NHS because I think we might be talking about it later, I can't remember. I mean, how long are we sacking? I mean, this is 2022 and that's all it takes. And the point that I'm trying to make is growth is a great thing, right? But what do we mean by growth? It's almost, when I hear the Conservatives, I'm not an economist, Michelle, but when I hear them talk, it's very much like they think all the solutions and the cure is around the financial markets, effectively. And there doesn't seem to have been, for the last 10, 15, 20 years, any long-term investment in what you might call infrastructure, technology.
No, because all politicians focus on is how do I get re-elected?
You're right. You're right. But can we be better than that? Or is that naive?
Well, I think we should. I mean, I've set out my little thought process before, where I was saying that big key things, whether it's the NHS, whether it's massive infrastructure things, whatever, they should almost be taken out of the day-to-day political portfolio, because for me, they're too big to be political footballs focused only on 5-year cycles. But when I ask you about the speed, what do you think drove the speed? I'm not trying to say Truss and Kwarteng are blameless in any of this, but I blame the media for a lot of this. Because I think the media in this country, or certain segments of the media, they've got a little bit too ahead of themselves. They think that they can control who is the Prime Minister of this country. I think they went to town on Boris Johnson, and they were helped very much, obviously, by the opposition, but also by quite a lot of duplicitous people within the Tory party themselves. And now, what I think needs to happen is you've got Liz Truss in this country. Why would anybody think the right thing for this country right now is yet more disruption, yet another general election? It's kind of what we need right now is a little bit of stability. And I would say to Liz Truss, you've got to just power forward. I don't think you should be having all these U-turners. I don't. I think you've set your strategy, power on forward. Your MPs, they need to just get in line. All of this sniping, they're all going to be out of a job if they don't pack it in. This is your leader, whether you voted for it or not, that is your leader. And all of this two-facedness, duplicity, all it's going to do is cause disruption to this country, number one, more instability, number two, and all of you are going to lose your jobs at the end of it anyway.
I mean, judging by the polls, they're all going to lose their jobs with her. So I think that's probably one of the things, rightly or wrongly, that is front of mind for a lot of these MPs at the moment. But, you know, Michelle, as ever, kind of that point is absolutely right, that we do need stability. That's exactly what we need, stability right now. We need a steady hand. We need a disciplined hand on the, you know, government levers, if you like, because the people in this country are, looking at a winter and then probably into spring next year, which is going to be incredibly difficult. We are going to see house repossessions in numbers we haven't seen for a long time. We are going to see people, freezing in their homes because they can't afford rising bills across the board. And I think the question you have to ask is, do you actually get stability by sticking with Truss, despite what's going on, or actually do you get greater? And I don't know the answer to this, but do you actually get greater stability by changing the leader?
But I would say, when you say, Michelle, you blame the media, I look at the media in Britain and straight away I think the Mail, the Sun, the Telegraph, the Express, and they're all Tory papers effectively. They dominate, I think, the British media by and large. And you get the Guardian and a couple of others on the other side. And so what it's a reflection of is Tory infighting. That's how I see it. But the second thing which scares me about what you said, Michelle, and Charlotte agreed with you, is that you take effectively, correct me if I'm wrong, the big ticket issues out of the political party's realm and put them somewhere else.
I would do that, yeah.
Well, yeah, that equals the death of democracy. That's what democracy is, when you go to a ballot box and you have a say on who you want to elect to take charge of these affairs. That's why, for example, I would be completely against independence for the Bank of England. As far as I'm concerned, that's up to the Chancellor of Exchequer and the party that you elected as government to make those decisions. Once you start doing that, it might seem like a short-term solution, but what you're doing is corroding and chipping away at democracy. We already have problems that have been chipped away enough.
So, in short, you don't like my idea?
No.
I can handle that, don't worry. Do you like my idea at home? I think it's wonderful. Tell me your thoughts on all of that. John says, if the market's going to dictate policy, then we don't need a government. A new true Tory party should be formed with Jacob Rees-Mogg as its leader. That's what John has to say. Paul says, if Truss goes, then bring back Boris. Simon says, I'm a member of the Kamikaze Party, but not for much longer, the way that they're going. You see, kamikaze, that's Keir Starmer's word, isn't it? Seeping through there. Les says, Michelle, oh yeah, I've read that one out. You're saying that these are not Tories, they're Labour, dressed as Tories, basically. Harsh, but do you think that's true? Tell me your thoughts on that. Derek says, Liz Truss is doing us all a favour by making Tory MPs aware of why they were elected, I believe. Do you? Not sure. I mean, we could open this whole... I was just about to open this whole new can of worms, just in terms of disloyalty in the party. I think it's appalling. I think all of the Tories that are not backing their leader right now should be ashamed of themselves. Am I being harsh or not? Tell me, GBViews at gbnews.uk. Now, I'm going to take a quick break. When I come back, I want to talk to you about universities. Did you go to a university? Do you recommend your kids go to a university? I personally think way too many people are going there, and then they come out the other end with loads of debts, suddenly find that basically degrees are 10 a penny, and they don't really have much to differentiate themselves. Anyway, long story short, universities could find themselves getting fined if the majority of their students don't get top jobs. Is that sensible or not? I'll see you in 2.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness, brilliant.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry, with you until 7 o'clock this evening, and keeping me company in the studio I have Charlotte Pickles, the director of the Reform think tank, and teacher and author Kevin Rooney. Welcome back, everybody. Janet has just been in touch saying, Michelle, hello, this is my first time and I love your show. Welcome. Janet, is it your first time watching or your first time emailing? Either way, you are very, very welcome tonight. Someone else has just emailed, who's this? Joe. Michelle, are you auditioning to be the Tory chief whip? Enough now. I can assure you, Joe, I am not auditioning for any role in politics. I think I'd last about 5 minutes before I'd get fired, I think. I'm not very good at towing the party line, that is for sure. Right, let's talk about university. Did you go to university? If you did, tell me, get in touch. What did you study? What did you do at the end of it? And when you look back, was it all worthwhile? I have to say, you are a teacher, so I'm going to start with you. This story we're discussing tonight is a university now can be fined almost up to £500,000 if 60% of their students don't get a good enough job or set up their own business or continue their studies after completing their course. What do you think to this?
Well, Michelle, just because I'm a teacher, let me tell you, teachers can be like a bag of ferrets as well, with lots of different views about the world. But here's the question I would, as soon as I read that wee article, I asked myself, well, first question, what is education for? Question mark. And we've moved this situation with this government and the Labour Party are as bad, where they have this very instrumentalist, reductive ethos and definition and approach to education. They see universities now as little more than engines of like social mobility, where you go, you get your degree, and then you measure the quality of the degree by how much money people earn 6 months or 12 months down the line. And that's not what a university is for. That completely runs counter to what I believe in, which is the Enlightenment ideal. And I think you go to university to inculcate a curiosity in yourself, to develop your mind, to basically stand on the shoulders of giants. And I know, as I say that to you, yourself or some of your viewers will go, come on, don't be such
Well, I was cringing a little bit, I'll be honest.
I know.
But I was trying to be subtle.
Well, do you know what? I wear my accusation of cringeworthiness or idealism as a badge of honour. That's what a university should be for. And I'll tell you what I cringe at.
So you must be in favour of tuition fees then. Surely you don't want us taxpayers to fund all that.
No, I'm not in favour of tuition fees.
Hang on, so you want me to pay for some random 20-year-old to get enlightened or whatever it was?
The difference between us is I think education is a public good. And the bottom line is I think everybody's entitled to university education, just like I actually think everybody's entitled to a primary and secondary education. Now, whether those people in the past, there's some of those people today that don't even think you should be entitled to that. Now, that's the vision of a society that I want to aspire to. I think it's a positive vision, and I think we'll be the better for it. And what's happened is we have so dumbed down education, Michelle, that most people, possibly including yourself, just accept the terms of this discussion that we should have this crude measure of how much money people are earning or what type of job they get from university. If you want to go down that line, that's completely dead on. But don't call the institutions universities. Call them job training schemes or call
them...
Job
factories.
Let's call them job factories.
What did you just say you thought it was? What was that sentence you just used? And what was it?
I can't remember. Did I think universities...
Come on, I wanted to mock it, and I can't remember what it was.
Let me help you with your mockery. I believe, I really believe in the Enlightenment ideal.
That was it, yes. The Enlightenment ideal.
I love it. I'm excited even saying it.
The Enlightenment ideal.
The Enlightenment ideal.
The Enlightenment ideal. Right, so tell me this at home. The Enlightenment ideal.
Of what an education should be and what a university should be for.
Do you want to pay for that at home? Do you want to pay for a 20-odd-year-old to be enlightened?
Yes. Yes.
I don't. I might be a bit harsh, by the way. Tell me, where do you stand on it all?
I mean, I love the enthusiasm that Kevin has, and I do share there's a part of me that shares the view that there's more to education and the value of education than simply getting someone to a job. But I'm afraid I'm with Michelle on the okay. But if taxpayers are to a very large sum subsidising this, and actually what we really know is that a lot of the courses that the regulator wants to target are actually pretty rubbish courses that individuals and taxpayers are spending a small fortune on, keeping going. Universities are making money from having, then no, I don't think that's a good thing, and I think we should be tightening that. And Kevin, you said a great phrase, but in a negative, whereas I would pick that up and say that's what universities should be, which is an engine for social mobility. And you know who a vast proportion of the students doing these not very helpful and expensive courses are? They're from disadvantaged backgrounds, and so we've got essentially, if you want to use that terrible phrase, underprivileged, disadvantaged, whatever you want to call this group of young people, being told, as Michelle, you alluded to in the intro, you've got to go to university because if you don't go to university, you're somehow a failure, which is obviously a ridiculous position that we find ourselves in. So they're going, oh gosh, I've got to go to university. They end up at these rubbish courses and they come out not with additional skills, kind of a degree that's going to open doors to great jobs. They're coming out with debt. They're coming out with debt and basically nothing to show for 3 years of going through a university that hasn't really offered them anything. So I'm all for cracking down on this.
This is an interesting discussion. I can remember in years gone by sitting in parents' evenings before COVID when you actually spoke to a human being.
Them were the days,
rather than via a video or whatever. And often, I have to be honest, I can remember quite a few Nigerian women and Ghanaian women, certain African parents, and they would always be talking about university options, and we're going to go, my son's going to go and do some computer programming, or he's going to do finance, he's going to do this and that. And I'd be making the point that your son or your daughter is a brilliant historian or a brilliant sociologist even, which I taught. They go, no. And I totally understand why the parents wanted to get that kid in a conveyor belt towards a university degree or whatever, where they're going to come out the other side, make a lot of money and improve their lives. But I want to argue this, and I really passionately believe this. I actually think that's cheating on a lot of those kids and sells them short. And my argument is, I want that kid to go to the best university, the Russell Groups, the Oxbridges and everywhere else. I want them, if they want to do the history or the classics or literature, to be able to study and learn the best that's been thought and said. Because you probably know this, Charlotte, from your think tank. I bet you do. You probably know that when people have that well-rounded education, that culturally literate education, when you come out the other side, they're often the very people that the City of London and the banks and everybody else wants to employ.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
And so my point is that a byproduct of a good education is that actually often a good job will follow. And the problem that we also have in this discussion, tell me off if I'm convoluting the discussion too much, is that we somehow think that educating the kids in a certain way in the university is going to solve the problems of the economy further down the line. My point is that's completely looking at it cart before horse.
But the problem, I think, Kevin, is that you're absolutely right. Look, hands up, I'll make a confession here. I did history at university. So I didn't do a kind of, a sort of particularly skill-focused, profession-focused degree. I did history, and I'm delighted with what I do now, and that's great. But you know what? The going and doing something like history or classics or English lit or whatever it might be, art history, whatever it is, right? Going and doing that at Russell Group University or Oxbridge is going to open doors. That is not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is going and doing like, excuse my French, but crappy degrees in universities that aren't going to be recognised, where those kids have been pushed to go to university.
Oh, Charlotte, we agree.
And actually, you're not getting anything from the end of it.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is you don't sort of judge those and say you should do this. Just scrap them. If they're crappy, degrees, 100,000%.
Yeah.
So we don't have a disagreement about
I don't know if we're allowed to say that C word at tea time, by the way.
Apologies.
So if you've got kids...
GB viewers, from the bottom of my heart.
I think it's me who had to...
Oh, was it you?
Repeat it
Who
as well?
said it, Michelle?
I started it.
The parent, you're as bad as each other. There's only me that's above the line. Let me ask you this, right? I didn't go to university. It probably won't surprise you
You practiced
to
and all, I
learn
remember.
to
I
learn
followed
that.
you all your life.
Did you?
Yeah.
Followed me my whole life.
Sounds a little bit stalky.
I know. Do I need to get an injunction? This is something I need to know.
Go on.
Right, so we all talk about university as being this big social mobility climber. See, what I think has happened with university, the whole thing has become dumbed down because now you've got a load of lazy employers who just put a degree requirement at the end of a job advertisement for jobs. You don't need a degree to do half of these jobs. And now all you're doing is causing yourself trouble. So I think it's
I agree, but I completely concur with you, but that doesn't go against my point. By the way, you know my life. Not that you followed my life. Like
I was going to say, what? This is not a mutual life following that we've got going on here.
I left school at 16 and didn't go anywhere. He didn't go to sixth form, didn't go to university. All that happened in my late 20s when I met this girl, fell in love. She's quite bourgeois.
You do realise I'm off air at 7, yeah?
Was a bit of influence on me, and I'd said to go and do a few degrees after that, blah, blah, blah. So your point is a cracker. I completely agree, and I think it's absolutely
right, I'm going to kick you off in a minute.
Absolutely possible to leave school at not even 18, 16 and make something of your life. And I agree that in many respects we invest too much in a university education in terms of how people are going to support themselves throughout the rest of their life. But where we differ, a fundamental difference between myself and the both of you, is I think that you underestimate the importance of being able to go out from the world to university and be surrounded by a shell or a bubble for a couple of years of life and lose yourself in the book, and to be able to discuss ideas in an abstract way and then come out the other end, because I think a good university quality education like that will never ever leave you.
And that's fine, you can sit in your bubble reciting your classics all you want, but why should I as a taxpayer have to pay for it? And by the way...
Because it's the nature of what it is to be a human being and human flourishing and the good life.
And by
Surely
the
we
way,
want to aspire to that,
when they come out of this bubble, half of them, they're gormless. You try and put them into the workplace, Kevin. You say that these degrees are about the workplace. You stick them in the workplace, they're absolutely
there are gormless people in the Tory party, and there's gormless people in the Labour party, and there's gormless people in the media. So gormless people, they don't have a monopoly in any particular one walk of life.
Well, there you go. Where do you stand? Lots of different opinions on that topic, and some bad language, by the way. So I do apologise if you've got children watching. That's what happens, you see, when you go to university. So apologies, should I say,
guys.
for that. Right, going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk to you about motorists. Are you one of them? Do you have a car? Do you drive? If so, have you noticed there does seem to be a few different things going on at the moment that, when combined, make it hard to kind of think there's anything other than a war on motorists taking place at the moment. Do you agree with me? Tell me, and I'll see you in 2.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, We're
on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry, right through until 7 o'clock tonight. Keeping me company, Charlotte Pickles, the director of the Reform think tank, and the teacher and author Kevin Rooney. We just continued our conversation about university into the break. Charlotte was just making the point that we never really got onto the topic about lifelong learning. I do agree, actually, that we could be better at helping adults and all the rest of it reskill, develop their skills. We're not very good at that as a nation, though, are we? The question would be, who pays for that? The other thing we didn't touch upon, what I'm passionate about, apprenticeships. If you ask me, that's the direction that more young kids should be going in, but there's a bit too much snobbery around when it comes to apprenticeships versus universities. Do you agree? Let me know your thoughts. But for now, let's move on. Do you drive a car? The reason I'm asking this, I saw a story in the press today, I didn't realise. If you're driving along, minding your own business, you get an emergency vehicle behind you, you do the right thing, you get out the way. But if you was to pull into the bus lane, go into a yellow box, whatever, I didn't realise this, but you will be fined for doing so. Getting out the way for an emergency vehicle is not a valid excuse. Anyway, so then, Charlotte, I started thinking about motorists more generally.
Yep.
And then I started thinking about low traffic networks, cycle lanes, bus lanes, traffic wardens, fines for everything. And it made me think, I do feel, as a motorist, that there is a bit of a war on motorists, that people are just being almost, you're trying to make it so impossible to get around in your car because you don't want people to do it.
I mean, I think certainly motorists have become cash cows. That's certainly true. And actually, if you look at the sort of money that local authorities, councils are making from fining motorists, it's huge. And I think probably something does need to be done about that. I guess I'm torn on this because actually I really like driving and I think, you know, being able to get around in a car, particularly, you know, in certain areas. I mean, we're sitting here in London and you know, we've got brilliant and relatively cheap public transport and that's great. But you know what? Most of the country doesn't have that. So it's really important to have vehicles. Also, elderly people who, you know, it's not a choice to say, oh, well, OK, it's only a 20-minute walk. But you know what? Or disabled people, they can't do that walk. So penalising them from having a car is actually really problematic. At the same time, we have huge issues with car pollution, air pollution, which is literally now coming through in increases in asthma amongst kids. You know, we actually had that case, whenever it was, 2 years ago, of the first case where car pollution, air pollution was actually on the coroner's death certificate for a little girl who died. We also have massive congestion. You know, we are going to need to do something about that. So I'm really torn as to which way you go. But the particular example of the finding someone for moving into a bus lane to get out of the way of an ambulance, I mean, for goodness sake.
And we do have loads of congestion, by the way, because half the road space keeps getting taken up to be nigh on empty bus lanes or cycle lanes. That's why there's all this congestion, because now we've got one lane of cars. And don't even get me started on 20 mile an hour speed limits. Don't even get me started on that one. Where do you sit on this, Kevin?
This is where my wife hates me, because this is where I turn into a rant and old baldy man, you know, devoid of any rationality, because I've been, you know, I almost sound like a conspiracy theorist, but your point about the bus lane is shocking, it's a disgrace.
What is my point?
The point about the finding the motorists for ambulance to get by is absolutely shocking. But I'm going to tell you where I live. I live up in North London. It'd be interesting to see how many viewers know. I know most viewers live outside London, but it's called Bounds Green. You know, it's basically,
I don't know that
it's on the
area.
border with Haringey, Wood Green, Muswell Hill. Muswell Hill's where the lovely rich people live, and the other side, Wood Green's where the less rich people live, and I'm Bounds Green in the middle. But anyway, during COVID, they introduced a low traffic neighbourhood scheme.
Yes.
And they asked the people, and from what we could gather, a good 3/4, or at least a good majority anyway, were against it. And the protests were quite big and all the rest of it.
Similar in our area.
And then COVID came and consultation sort of didn't happen because of, maybe COVID. But then the next minute it was just ruled out. And then we're 100 metres from Haringey. And what they've just did now is they've ruled it into Haringey. And the people of Haringey, 100 metres the other side of where I live, are up in arms, and the vast majority of them are opposed to it. And just at the bottom of my street's the North Circular. And so when you look at the other side, they've introduced it there in that part of Enfield. And the point I'm making is, from what I can gather, this is unscientific. I'd love the councils to come back to me, the viewers. Absolutely, a clear majority of people are against this. But there seems to be, this is my instinct on it, all these councils are Labour, is the first thing. And the second thing is there seems to be a small bunch of what I can only describe as zealots, environmentalist zealots. And they seem to be able to push this through, and they're well organised. And the rest of the people are a bit naive, like my neighbours. Well, it just sort of happens and it's done. And everybody's against it. Now, this has already been in my area for a while, and people are already at the stage where we're a bit apathetic, Michelle. And I know I can sound like a conspiracy theorist, and I don't want this to be a war between cyclists and motorists, because it's not the word that simple. But there's something going on. I would love somebody who knows more than me to fill me in on this, because somehow these people who don't seem to have majority support are able to implement these schemes. And what it means for me, I know your viewers aren't interested in my difficulties, but whereas I used to leave the house in the morning, I leave early, about 6:10 for work, I'd get to my work where I teach about 3 miles away at that time in the morning, about 10, 12, 14 minutes max. Now it takes me twice as long. If I leave going to work till about after 7.
Why don't you cycle?
Well, read my lips. Where's your camera? Read my lips. I don't want to cycle.
Why not?
Because I like the car. I feel the car's a
liberation.
But
what about that kid that she was saying about the pollution?
And do you know what? When it comes to the winter and the rain and the sleet and the snow, I love sitting in my wee car, listening to my particular radio, my little music that I listen to, and it's lovely. I do not want to cycle. In 2022, I think we're capable of organising a society where people can have a car and drive from A to B if they want. Now, I'm not against
What about the environment, Kevin?
Okay, here we go. You've got me. I, on the Richter scale of my concerns, I put my car before the environment.
That's not very nice. So you would put your desire to listen to your favourite radio station, which I'm assuming is GB News, obviously. You care more about that than they're in my ear saying I'm just as bad. I'm not, thank you very much. But yeah, don't you care about the environment? What about the next generation? What about that kid she was mentioning?
You know what's going to happen? I'm going to go into school tomorrow. My best mates are really into the environment. I'm not, look, what can I say? On the Richter scale of my concerns, I know the media pump this out left, right and centre, and we're supposed to be more concerned. If I'm being really honest, my day-to-day life and my comforts pretty much come first. I'm sorry.
Do they? Oh. Well, are you with Kevin on this? Do you want your comfort more than you want the environment to prosper? Some would. I mean, it's a good job there's no, what do you call them, just stop oil people. They'd be going apoplectic. They'd have steam coming out the luggles.
Michelle, ask Charlotte that question. I want to hear her answer.
Yeah, do you care more about your comforts and your luxuries than you do the environment?
So I don't really know how to answer that, because
Answer it honestly.
So I'm perfectly happy to walk in the rain. I do. I'm perfectly. I mean, I don't cycle, mostly because I think it's an incredibly dangerous thing to do in London because of all the cars. But I'm very happy to walk in the rain or whatever. And actually, I guess I'm not. I'm a bit like Kevin. The environment isn't my thing. I'll do a bit what I can, but it's not my thing. But I do deeply care about all the children that are growing up in really polluted environments, and the rise that we're seeing in development of asthma and other kind of breathing issues and stuff. That I do think is a problem.
Right. Well, how much do you care about it? Get in touch. a few of you are getting in touch saying you care also more about your own luxuries than you do the climate. Goodness me, have you noticed I've said nothing? I've had my lips sealed.
We know where you stand.
That whole thing, I've had my lips sealed. I've been diplomatic on that one. What can I say? Lots of you enjoying the conversation tonight. Michael says, very good, very civilised. Keep it up. You enjoy the two panellists more than the three. Do you remember the days I used to have the three? I prefer the two as well. By the way, there's all these plant pots popping up everywhere. I don't know if they're the same thing as the low traffic neighbourhoods, but I seem to be noticing these plant pots popping up and blocking the road. Is that just where I live or not?
No, they're everywhere.
Yep. Right, look at the time, everyone. It flies, doesn't it, when you are having fun? That's all I've got time for. Charlotte, Kevin, thank you very much for your company. Thank you at home for yours too. Have yourself a fantastic night. Don't go anywhere, though, because Nigel Farage is up next.
I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update. Good evening to you. The next few days will continue to bring chopping and changing weather. Yes, at times there'll be plenty of October sunshine, but there'll be lots of showers around as well, and often fairly breezy, especially in the north. Weather fronts moving across the north, and then we have this waving weather front close to the south. In between, well, there's been plenty of fine weather through the day today, but now these weather fronts are pushing in across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Further rain to come in the northwest. Very blustery conditions here as well. The winds are lighter further south. Misty, murky conditions developing again, so a few patches are likely. It won't be as cold as last night. Temperatures in many towns and cities staying in double digits. On to Friday, and it's a bit of a mishmash really. Cloud and rain in the southwest, just slowly spreading northwards. At the same time, this line of rain clears from the central belt of Scotland, spreads into southern Scotland and eventually into parts of northern England, followed by lots of showers across Scotland and Northern Ireland. But in between, some parts of northern England, North Wales, having another dry and a bright day. Quite mild in the south, 17, 18, but not feeling all that mild with the cloud and the outbreaks of rain. It'll still be around on Friday evening across the southeast before that scoots away. This line of rain kind of fizzles out as it sinks its way southwards. So again, clear spells, some mist and fog patches forming as we head into Saturday. But then another line of rain comes zipping in. That'll make for a fairly soggy start through parts of Wales, Northern England and Scotland on Saturday, but again it scoots away to the north and to the east, and it'll be followed behind by a whole host of showers. So blustery with sunshine and showers on Saturday afternoon, with temperatures again in the south, the mid to high teens, lower further north, only 10 to 12, so feeling pretty fresh here with that brisk wind. The weather charts remain messy through the weekend, low pressure systems bringing the bands of showers, and then this one could bring some more persistent rain into the west on Sunday.